Established in 1994 by the government of the Bahamas, Parliamentary Channel 40 broadcasts gavel-to-gavel coverage of the proceedings of both houses of Parliament, providing up-to-date information, including live interviews and historical data on the workings of one of the most important branches of government.
Welcome back to Highlights from Parliament. I'm Genea Noel-Ferguson, and today we look back at the recent events that occurred during the last session of the House of Assembly. Government ministers continue to answer questions placed on the agenda for quite some time. They started out with answering the questions related to employment at government agencies from May 2007 to December 2011. Government ministers provided the latest numbers. For the Airport Authority, 69 persons, Gaming Board, 22 persons, contract workers for the public service, 381 persons, civil servants and pensionable workers, 1,764 persons, Bahamas Air, 100 persons, Immigration, 85, the Bridge Authority, 11, BEC, 128, the Water and Sewage Corporation, 61 persons, and 282 persons were hired for the Customs Department. Minister of State for Finance and MP for Marco City, Shivago Lang, explained why these additional persons were needed.
We increased the staff of the Customs Department in keeping with our vision to upgrade the Department of Customs to a fully modernized revenue and border control agency, operating under international best practices as defined by the World Customs Organization and the Kyoto Protocol on Customs Practices. In addition to strengthening its staff, Parliament passed a new and modern Customs Management Act, inclusive of a comprehensive first-time code of conduct. We are taking steps to completely revamp the communication and technology capabilities of the Customs Department.
To this end, Lang said that all customs operations will be moved to the Nassau Container Port facility at Arawak Key.
We are removing from the city center all customs suffrage ports used for the purpose of landing foreign goods, freight, cargo, containers, freight equipment, bulk materials, and/or exporting goods. Freight, cargo, containers, freight equipment, bulk materials now situated at the John Alfred Dock and the Union Dock. As of 12:01 a.m., April 1st, 2012, all customs operations in the city of Nassau will be situated at, the 25,000 square foot Nassau Container Port Break Bulk Terminal located at Arawak Key, Bahamas Customs.
Lang said that the rights for other docks, including the Betty K. John Alfred and Seaport docks, will also be removed.
As of 12 a.m. on the 15th May 2012, the Nassau Container Port Break Bulk Terminal and the Gladstone Freight Terminal will be the exclusive transit sheds located on New Providence and within 20 miles of the coastline of New Providence. All rights granted to other existing transit sheds, that is at John Alfred and Union Dock, will be revoked with effect from 11:59 p.m. on May 14, 2012.
As for the Clifton Pier and any thoughts about that location being used for the shipment of goods, Lang said it will only be used as a port under these conditions.
To be used solely for the loading and unloading of fuels, petroleum products, asphalt, and cement. 2, 24 hours advance notice will be given to the Customs Department. And 3, transportation of customs officers shall be provided by the importing companies.
The Bahamas Hot Mix Brent Simonet connection was also addressed. Minister of Works Nico Grant tabled documents that outlined how many contracts the company received that equaled over $100 million. The biggest of that was for the redevelopment of the Queen Elizabeth Sports Center.
The contract amount, $48,549,265.72. With a contingency of $2.5 million, this contract was awarded in April of 2011 and completion date of 2013, and it was a public tender exercise.
And for those of you thinking that Bahamas Hot Mix got the lion's share of the government's contracts, here's what Minister Grant had to say.
I wish to table a detailed list of road contracts awarded between June 2007 and December 2011 to private contractors in New Providence. This list shows as follows. In 2007, $10,380,000. In 2008, $114,761. In 2009, $125,942,488. In 2010, $72,147,508. And in 2011, $36,254,931. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy, this gives us a grand total of contracts issued to private contractors other than Bahamas Hot Mix in the amount of $244,839,834.
The opposition's questions were mainly based on the tender and bidding process for various projects and which companies the contracts were awarded to. The government provided answers to these questions, but soon suspended the House until today, March 5th. This, however, did not sit well with members of the opposition who objected to the move, claiming that there were matters still left on the agenda to be debated.
We have matters to discuss in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker, and you can't just come, answer a few questions, and what you're doing, Mr. Speaker, is for hours is answering questions that should have been answered 2 years ago.
Okay,
Mr. Speaker, and so we're rejecting to this, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
We're rejecting to this. We want matters. We want to deal with some matters, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
We came here prepared to deal with matters. We came here ready to debate. We came here ready to debate the issues they've laid on the table, the bills that they put on the table, Freedom of Information Act, the Stability Act, Mr. Speaker. We also have reports from the Public Accounts Committee. We can't get there because they're frustrating the process.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Member. Okay, it has been.
The chair, Mr. Speaker. So give the opposition its say. They can have their way, you know. Give us our say, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House suspends to Monday, the 5th of March, 2012 at 10 a.m. As many as are in favor would remain seated. Those that oppose would rise. The business of this House stands suspended to Monday, the 5th of March, 2012 at 10 a.m.
Members of the opposition called a press conference immediately following the meeting, claiming that the government is stalling the tabling of the Public Accounts Committee report that details the cost overruns of the Nassau Infrastructural Development Project. Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham has already stated that the project is more than $40 million over budget. PLP leader Perry Christie.
The government is trying to avoid as long as possible the second interim report of the Public Accounts Committee. Arguably, the most important committee in our Parliament is the Public Accounts Committee, which is the only committee with a majority of opposition members. That committee is chaired by Dr. Bernard Nottage and has on its membership Mr. Ryan Pinder, Mr. Frank Smith for the Progressive Liberal Party. And I think it's Crazy. Yes. Okay. But Dr. Nottage will speak to the committee. But the point I would wish to make at this time is that we have been coming to Parliament now for the 2 sessions where the committee was ready to report. And clearly the government is trying to preempt that report by moving to suspension of Parliament. We are trying to conform with the best practices in politics and in our democracy by the committee waiting its due time to report. But everyone knows now we are approaching a time when elections are going to be called, and that we do not know when, and therefore there is tremendous concern as to whether or not this committee will be allowed to report.
Committee Chairman Dr. Bernard Nottage said that if the government does not allow the document to be tabled, it could possibly be made public.
We have now completed the last segment of our work. We've been ready to report, in fact, since about the end of November. But we have a formal, final report on that section of our work now, which we are now prepared to present to the Parliament. The rules of the House require us to do that before we make the contents of the report public, and we've been trying to abide by those rules. However, I put the government on notice that if it is their intention to cause the report of the committee to die before the end of this session of Parliament, we will not allow that to happen. And so if we cannot do it in this building, we will do it in an open Parliament of the people.
Dr. Nottage took this position despite House rules that dictate that the details of that report cannot be revealed until it is tabled and debated in the House. Meanwhile, debate is expected to begin in the House of Assembly on the Freedom of Information Act. It will be one of the last set of bills before the government completes its legislative agenda. The bill was debated during the last session of the Senate, and according to Attorney General John Delaney, it will change operations within government agencies.
There could be no question that this bill, this law, is the right thing to do for the Bahamas. Doesn't mean that it is going to be something that falls into place easily. Let me say right now, I don't expect for 1 minute that this will fall into place easily. It's going to be a shakeup. No question about it. But people will conform. The public sector will be made to conform to this new way of thinking.
The Freedom of Information Bill will also ensure that every government authority has an information officer who will be responsible for disseminating information and keeping accurate records.
This is a very important requirement, and I just want to say that again. Every public authority must have an information manager to promote within that public authority the best practice in relation to record maintenance, archiving, and disposal, and receiving and responding to requests or complaints regarding the performance of that public authority relating to information disclosure. That is so important because of the change of culture that has to be undergone. There needs to be a central person who will be educated and sensitized about this new culture, this new environment, this new obligation. So that person will be trained, and that person within the public authority will then set about to make sure that when he has to respond to requests, or she has to respond to requests, that the capacity to do so is there because the information is being properly captured, properly maintained, and that he or she has the ability to deliver upon a request within that period of time.
The Freedom of Information Act will not apply to the judicial functions of a court, the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Forces, the Customs Department, the Department of Immigration, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and any authority specified in the Act. Records are also exempt if the disclosure would prejudice the security, defense, or international relations of the Bahamas. However, the Act does ensure that every Bahamian citizen and permanent resident shall have a right to obtain access to a record other than what is exempt. That that was a quick wrap-up of highlights from Parliament. Thanks so much for watching.